Hello and welcome to Dyslexia Explored. I'm your host, Darius, with co-host.
Hey, I'm Jill.
Today, we've got a really interesting topic of conversation, and we brought in a really interesting person to talk about it. We really want to talk about the effect of text readers and how useful it is when you get text read out to you. And I think sometimes we just assume, oh yeah, and we don't always know what the practical huge range of different ways it helps people with dyslexia, whether it's mild dyslexia or extreme dyslexia, even when you can read. So we racked our brain and we thought it would be great to get a person who knows about this from the inside out themselves and actually is involved in the software as well, knows it inside out. So I'd like to introduce you to a chap who has always been involved in education, whether it's been through assistive technology with Microsoft or doing cloud services, getting schools systems set up, etc., and is now part of a company that helps people with reader software and is a sales manager for that. And the importance of all of this is, we want to really get to know not just a product, but the whole range of ways that getting text read out to you with dyslexia affects you and helps you. And to do that, we've got Jason Giddens here, otherwise known as Jay. Nice to have you here, Jay.
Thank you. That's a big introduction. I'm not sure I'm going to live up to this,
I think you are. Absolutely.
It's also slightly odd as well, just for me to be on this side of the microphone. So yeah, so I'm gonna have to try and normally I stay quiet, so it's quite refreshing.
Yeah, and we should actually mention that to everyone listening here right now that Jay, you do have a podcast as well called Thick No More that is a brilliant resource for people with dyslexia. So definitely go and check that podcast out as well, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Link in the show notes below.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now, first of all, Darius introduced you there as Jason and Jay. Which one do you prefer? Is there a story behind that?
Yes, there is actually. Yeah. So 70s kid in the days when nobody even knew what dyslexia was really.
Mm.
It gets repetitive because I was called thick, dumb, stupid, lazy, act like a monkey. I was made to stand in the old rectangular shaped bins, which is a clear, vivid memory for me, with a banana skin in the bottom of it. And the reason I call myself Jay is because I could never spell Jason. I could near enough write a J, but the amount of times it was corrected by teachers, well, I'd be a millionaire if I'd been paid for every time they'd corrected it. So it kind of stuck. And growing up, playing football as a kid, yeah, I was called Jay. I've been called Jason when I'm being told off. But yeah, it's Jay. Everyone knows me on as Jay on LinkedIn, and when I do my podcast, it's Jay. So yeah, but you can call me anything. I pretty much respond to anything these days.
Yeah. So you used to just write the letter J for your name and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's those were tough days. They really were. And as you said, I'm in the industry. You guys are in the industry, and we see changes. And it is nice now that there's change for children and there's hope for children. But yeah, I struggled like you wouldn't believe. There was one change in my life where, when I think back now, my father was a mechanical engineer, and he used to travel the world. And we got the opportunity to go and live in Nigeria. So this was like a complex where they were building a dam. And I was told I was going to go to school in Nigeria. So you have all these, I'm like 10 years old at this point, still like massively behind at school, struggling, made to go and sit in a different room because I was just distracting, causing problems. And when I had my first day at school, it used to start at 7:00. And he was an English guy, and there was only 4 other children in the class with me. 2 of them, I think, were Italian, the other 2 maybe French, not sure. When I came back to the UK after being in Nigeria for, 15 weeks-ish, I was 6 weeks in front of the class in the UK school. And this is the heartbreaking thing. Yeah. And this is the heartbreaking thing about it. They then made me sit and do nothing for 6 weeks.
Oh, gosh.
To wait for everyone else to catch up.
Gosh.
And was it that sort of more focused, like the teacher could teach to your needs as opposed to you having to try and fit into an entire classroom that made all the difference?
I reckon. And you know, the heartbreaking thing about it is I don't remember the guy's name. And I'm sure because she years have gone by now. I'm in my 50s now. So, but yeah, he obviously could see something in me and adapted his teaching style to bring that out of me. So even back then, there were ways to manage the dyslexia, you know, back then. And he picked up on it.
So take us back to what was life like before? Well, often I ask people, or we now with Joe here, ask people in their dyslexia journey, what life was like before you discovered dyslexia and what woke you up to the word dyslexia or the idea dyslexia?
That's a pretty good question. So what was it like? Well, I think back now, I wrote a post the other day on social media that after 40 years, I found my voice. I have the confidence to reply to people now. I have the confidence to address this. Even this for me would have been horrific. I have a severe doubt in myself. I have a fear of failure, a fear of tests, which is something I'd love to talk about. We mentioned assistive technology. I really want to home in on that because that was one of my biggest problems. The moment anyone said to me, so the moment Mr. Darius said, right, Jason, at the end of this, we've got a test, I'd be like, pointless, absolutely pointless. I knew, because two things were going to happen to me. The first thing was going to happen is I was going to doubt myself and doubt my ability that I'd remembered anything over those 12 months, 6 months, if I was lucky. And it was just a level of expectation from me that it was going to be a red cross on that page. I actually thought to myself, well, how many red crosses am I going to get? Not how many ticks am I going to get? You start to believe as an individual the words that are spoken to you. Now, I don't hold any grudges to any of those teachers. There are words. And I remember my mum used to say to me, was it sticks and stones will break your bones, this, that, and the other, you know. And they were just words. But unfortunately, what happens is it sticks and carries with you. And then that seed of doubt is planted up there. You just think that's what you are. I believed I was thick, dumb, lazy, stupid. So I cheated my way through what I thought was a system which wasn't made for me. So don't ask me how I got to college, I did. Don't ask me how I went through university, I did. How did I understand the word dyslexia? I started my first job as a graduate with Xerox. Again, you guys will get this because we're in that age bracket. I had to say this to my son and he looks at me just absolutely gone out. But it was in the days of carbon copied paper. So you would go into, it was the NHS that I was looking after. And there was three carbon papers. So colour for them, a colour for the system and a colour for copy for us. I'd been doing the graduate role for about 6 months. So I was actually physically on the road at this point. And I got called into the office. Now, there was 2 offices. There was one in London. There was one in Manchester. I got called into the one in Manchester. I was told by my boss, I need to have a talk with you. And I'm like, this doesn't sound good. So I remember getting up, panicking. And it's funny because it's one of the vividest memories I have of my dyslexia journey. A lot of my school stuff I don't remember because I just shut it out.
Yeah.
He took me into the office and he said, you're doing a brilliant job. You are undoubtedly have a gift to sell like I've never seen. He said, but we have a bit of a problem. Okay. He said, and I remember him getting up, pushing the door too. He said, every piece of paperwork that you've done, I've had to correct and resend it back off to get it re-signed. I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, I think you're dyslexic. And yeah, they supported me. They did everything for me. So that was my first understanding of the word. The first time I'd heard it after, I don't particularly like this word, but after blagging my way through an education system, which frankly, I just didn't understand. So that was the first time I heard it. And yeah, it was bizarre, a bizarre moment. One of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure of working for, somebody I totally respect. And yeah, it must have been a difficult thing for him to have to say to me. But what a brilliant moment. And would I be that person? Well, I wonder how far I'd have gone on this journey believing these things if that person hadn't said that to me.
And it sounds like it was the double whammy of someone who had the sort of courage to have the uncomfortable conversation and say, actually, this could be dyslexia, but actually follow that straight up with support as opposed to sort yourself out. And it's that, isn't it? It's sort of dyslexia, it's dyslexia, but it's the support that can be offered. And like you say, you are obviously absolutely brilliant at the sales bit, which would make sense. We speak to a lot of people with dyslexia, and their interpersonal skills and their ability to relate to people is really a gift. I know people are not always a fan of the superpower concept with dyslexia, but it really is over and above other people. So that sort of relational aspect of the role was obviously absolutely fantastic. And then the administrative paperwork bit, more of a challenge.
You think where we are now, 2025, nearly 2026, and there are still 0.1% of businesses that aren't even disability confident. They're too scared to have these conversations. And there was this guy years and years and years ago, 25, nearly 30 years ago, was not afraid to go, you know what? And all credit to him, because I would love there to be more leaders like that in the UK that have those conversations, go, how can I help you as an individual? How can I put you on this path to make you successful?
Do you know where he is now?
Yeah, I do. He's retired. He's happy. He's living in Spain. And Can
you give him a shout out, or would that make him feel awkward?
No, Gary, if you are listening and ever see this, he knows. Yeah, he knows. Probably up until like 10 years ago, he was still kind of mentoring me along my journey, even 10 years ago, even though he wasn't even part of it anymore.
Oh,
so
fabulous.
Gary woke you up to dyslexia, and I'm fascinated. Does Gary have dyslexia? What was his understanding? How did he know? What prompted him to pick it up?
I have no idea, and I've never really had the conversation as to why I think it got. If you can imagine, in those days, Xerox was like a Microsoft or a Tesla of these days, if you like. They were a global leader. They were way in front of everybody else, even with their sales training and their techniques and the support of their staff. I mean, I vaguely remember we just getting onto scan to email when I was there. So the internet was a thing, but obviously it was dial-up. But we were given laptops during my period that I was there. And even then, they had like a really basic type of intranet system for support. So the basics that we look for these days, they were implementing way back then. So I think probably maybe he'd had a conversation with maybe HR in the States, and I don't honestly know. And I'd actually probably a question I should ask him. How did you ever really understand it, and where did it come from? I never questioned it myself. I just it kind of feels like a light bulb moment, I guess. Did someone flick the switch?
Did you go away and get like a whole formal assessment done and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I originally went to a doctor's, which was my own, and they were like, oh, no, it's just, you're a slow learner or a slow processor, or I forget what he said. And I went back and they said, no. And they paid. I went to I remember it was reminds me of like a country club type place. And it was like obviously a private clinic that I went to. It was in the Lake District, actually. And there was a lady there, and she went through all these, like almost like you would do these days with like a hearing test, like lots of words and things that were put in front of me, and I had to say back what I thought they were, and this, that, and the other. And she said, I validate everything that's been said, and these are the things we can do, and this is what you should do to support yourself. But there wasn't really anything like there is now. So there wasn't options for me to use a computer and use some technology where I could either speak in or get some technology to read it back to me. The process they put in place was to help me with paperwork. I actually used an administration person. So what I would do is I would go to the hospitals, I would get the agreement in place, and then that would be faxed over to them, written by one of my colleagues. It would be signed by me beforehand, then scanned and sent back to them. And that's the process they put in place to help me, which these days would be called assistive technology, if you like, because that's what they were doing. They were assisting me in a way to get through my daily job. And then when laptops came about, I was using some stuff that they had then. They bought me a dictaphone, an old style, tape recorder. Anything you want to say, don't have to write it down, record it in. I used to post the tapes. I used to pay for the postage for the tapes to go into the office. So it was really cool. They went above and beyond,
And is that the point you talk about finding your voice and talking more openly about dyslexia? Was it that point that you found your voice, or has that been later on in the journey?
No, a lot later, yeah. I've kept quiet. I still have, that's not strictly true. I did have a fear of public speaking. I did have a fear of failure, of being seen through, of making mistakes, not thinking the things that I was thinking up here. I've told you guys this story. I have Salvador Dali's and Van Goghs and Rembrandts up here. They are beautiful. But when I try to write things out, if I type an email to you, it may come across that I've hit the keyboard really hard, that I'm angry, that I'm not understanding myself. And I reckon over the last 2 years, 3 years, I've really started to think to myself, I need to start helping people give back. I see, like you two, I see families struggling. I see parents that aren't coping because they don't, the support, there's a misunderstanding. They have got to go through that journey that I went through. There are tools to help them now, but they still don't understand how they can tap into that, or how they can use it, or what are the advantages of it. So I've put myself on this little mini me journey where I am now. If I see something and I think, okay, you should comment on that, you should interact with this, you should say what you feel, I do. Whereas before, I would have took a step back and gone, no, I don't. Up here, I would think I don't agree with it, but I would be too scared what came out of there to address it because of the fear of getting it wrong, if you like.
Nearly every time I've asked a guest about what the wake-up call was in their journey, it's not been the internet or a Facebook group or a book that they've read. Rarely. It's normally a person who's just stepped forward and said, by the way, I think you might be dyslexic. Often in the kindest way possible, of course. And it's kind of like you feel that responsibility now. Let's wake up and help wake up someone else, be that wake-up call to someone else. You never know who that might be. They might have been reading a few posts, and often it's kind of like someone's heard the word maybe a few times, but then that's the right moment. They're ready to hear it, and they're like, do you know what? And then you go home and you speak to someone, you go, such and such says I might be dyslexic, and everyone in the house or your friends, well, nowadays goes, well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true. And I'm the same as you. I hear that as well. But once you're into this community, it's a beautiful community to be part of. And people have really opened their arms to me and embraced me and gone, hey, welcome, about time too. It's good to have your voice. It is scary though. I do feel for people, and I'd absolutely hate any child to go on that journey. I said to you, I block a lot of it out, and I have, but there are some vivid memories still. And I'd hate any child to go through that. And it's wrong that we have the ability to offer tools, but I don't think parents and even children still, they're probably given it maybe and gone, great. And it's like not reading the instructions for something. You wouldn't go out and spend £1,000 on a brand new TV and then you pick up the remote control and go, well, how do I use this? You'd follow the steps, you'd follow the setup guide, right? And I think that's probably what is lacking a little bit, is that guidance to get us on this right track. So there's less people having to have that conversation because they're already dealing with it.
And I think there's something, I mean, I've seen some of your posts. That was where I sort of first got to know you, Jay, by seeing some of the things that you have commented on LinkedIn. And they're so insightful, and you're so willing to be vulnerable about your story so that it might help someone else. And I think it's that there's a real power in communicating to people that they're not alone. I think it sounds like a bit of a daft example, but I came across something on social media and it said something like everybody in the UK will be saying like, gosh, it's getting dark tonight. And with the hour change. And I was like, I thought I was the only person that said that. And it was this sudden realization that we love to think we're unique, but actually we're not. Lots of people are like us, saying the same things, thinking the same things. But when you feel a little bit different to the rest of your classmates, or you're very creative, or you see things very visually and the whole world's written down, it can be hard to find your community and find your tribe and find the people who do see the world the same as you. So I think when you have the courage to speak out and say, this is how I see the world and this is what happened to me, there'll be so many people reading that, breathing out, going, oh my goodness, it's not just me. That's so wonderful.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. There's two things that have happened. One quite recently, I made a comment actually, what day is it? Monday, yesterday. And I didn't even realize it's just something I do. And one of my little tricks that I now do to help me stay on point, on focus, because that's one of the big things, one of my absolute flaws, my kryptonite, if you like, is the fact that if I'm doing something and something happens, I'll lose the focus on that. And then I'll lose the drive to go back to that. And someone put a post on yesterday, and this lady's got a huge, huge following. And I read it and I thought, yeah, she's kind of asking, what do people do to keep their mind on track? Neurodivergence. Come on, I want your thoughts on this. I put my shoes on in the house. That's it. I just put my shoes on. What do you mean? Well, if I need to do something and I need to absolutely focus on, Darius has asked me a question and I need to do this email and I've got to get it finished, put my shoes on, and it works. It just works. And I'm not saying that works for everyone, but it works for me. It's like putting your swimming shorts on because you know you go from a 100-meter race. It's just my focus. It's my focus point.
Okay, so does that become like a physical reminder that you're on the job doing something? It's like if you went out to, I don't know, I found that when I'm doing joinery or woodwork, I kind of put my joinery clothes on or my jacket on and I'm like, I'm in the woodwork mode and I do it and I finish the job, as it were. Or is it kind of like that it reminds you, or does it get you in the mood for a particular thing, or is it just a physical reminder? What is it?
I think it's the physical reminder of the fact that, right, the shoes are on, the focus point is now focus on that. And it just seems, but it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest. Maybe it is, well, I've got my shoes on and but it just works for me. It's bizarre.
And do you just put the shoes on when you decide to do that particular task? Or is that sort of thing, I put my shoes on when I start doing my work and I take it off at the end of doing my work? Is that how it works?
No, I use it as an actual focus point. So if it's something I've got to do, a presentation or particularly hard assessment or something I've got to like really, really focus on, that it's shoes on. And it's like, I always put this on when I do a podcast and I don't know why. And you had yours on when we started and I don't know why I do that, but I just do. It's a bizarre thing. And I talked about speaking and public speaking. I did a recording with a lady and I always, because I'm so insecure about mistakes, I always do a pre-meeting, normally a week before. And I capture everything. I get AI to read it back to me via text to speech. I listen to the questions and then I dictate the questions and I send the questions to the guest to go, listen, this is kind of where I'm going to go with this. This isn't dead straight. We're not on that road. I'm happy to go off, but this is where I'm going with it. If you're uncomfortable, let me know. And she's like, oh, that's great. And she says, oh, is it an audio or is it video? And I said, no, it's just audio. I can't do video because it means I can't look at my notes and I'm fear of failure and da-da-da-da-da. And she's all, at the end of this conversation, I'll give you a little bit of coaching about that. She's like, I can help you with that. I was like, okay. So she went through this thing and she said, where your fear is all of your thoughts up here, all of your words are all blocked up here. And she said, you paint pictures, it's all up there. And I was like, yeah. She said, well, what you need to do is you need to extract the words that you want and you need to push them down, right down into your belly. So, okay. She says, I know it sounds odd, but you need to practice it. I was like, okay. 1 week later, she comes onto the podcast and I've got my video on. And she said, right, I'm ready to go. I said, yeah, you can leave your video on. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, we're going to do a video. I'm over this note thing now. I'm good to go. She says, I've got no makeup on. She said, what have I done? And it's actually on this. We talked about it on a podcast and she was joking about it. But again, it just shows you how people's advice within our community can really change your thought process, you know.
And so how did that, I mean, that's fascinating. So you basically, from a jumble of words in your head, chose the ones that were really important and almost visualized yourself pushing them into your belly. And then what was the impact of feeling like they were in your belly instead of in your head? Because I just think there's going to be a whole raft of people now figuring out how to push words from their head to their belly and how it works.
It's so good because so this would be a great question for you to ask everybody after this. Has anybody ever done a public speaking session where you've got off the podium, walked away and not remembered a single word you've said? So that is me. That's how I am every time I've had to do a public. I can't even tell you what I've said. I don't know whether it was successful or disaster. She was saying to me and that's because everything is coming from here. She said, so your thought focus is you pick out keywords, what you want to do. And like when you guys are talking to me now, normally my fear would be I'll be forgetting something you've said. One of the words you took out there that I've just remembered is belly. That would have never happened before. So you take a word as a focus point, push it down and visualize that you've locked it down there. She's a wonderful lady. And I've got to say credit to her, Pamela, because I put her on a terrible position because she came in joggers and no makeup on. But it really, really works. It's fantastic. And there's so many great people out there with these advice for our community. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to know more. I think that's great. So do you think of it as like a jumble of words or a jumble of painted visuals? Which one is for you?
Yes, the visuals. I see the image and I push the image down and that's how I remember it.
Okay, so you've got these visuals. And do you turn it into a word or do you take the visual and bring it down?
Yeah, just take the visual and bring it down. She asked me how I remembered things. She says, how do you remember things? I said, well, whenever I'm driving, I don't need a map or a sat nav because I'll remember a little old lady crossing the road or I remember a phone box that was painted yellow. I remember things. She says, right, so that is your memory. Your memory is, remember what the visual is, push it down, and then you've got it. So that's how I remember things and it really works well.
You're almost creating a second memory of just the things you want to remember in that moment from the jumble of everything.
Yeah. So do you do it so let's say you've got a landscape of ideas and thoughts, okay? A visual landscape of ideas and thoughts. Are you taking like a little snippet of each key idea and image, the old lady rather than the whole street, and then putting a set of images down and using that set of images? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, that's how I did. That's how I've done I've done a webinar since that. So each particular, if you like, slide, I took a keyword, if you like, an image from that slide and pushed it down. And it might not even be a word which is relevant to the slide, but it's a word that I remember, that I remember what that slide is about. It's brilliant thing. And it's given me a new lease of life, I think. I've got to speak at BET in January. And normally by now I'd be like, oh my God, it's November. Then it's December. Then it'll be January. I haven't got my words done yet. No one's even talked to me about what I've got to say. And this is what it was like. I'm actually looking forward to doing it.
Oh, fantastic. What are you doing at BET?
So my day job, as you mentioned, I work in accessibility. I work for a company called ReadSpeaker and we do text to speech. And we exhibit there. And I'm doing a couple of talks, I believe. I'm doing one for one of our partner groups. And I'm doing one on talking about exams and how our product can be used in an exam situation. Again, I think really, really a relevant thing to talk about because technology is given out. We talked about the tele scenario. Technology is given out. And I think sometimes the student gets it, they're given it, and they know the basics of what it does. If I said to you text to speech, you know what text to speech is? Everybody knows what text to speech is. Great, it's text-to-speech. Did you know it could do that? Oh, I didn't know it could do that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And they're the nuggets that help these children through their life. They're the game changers. They're the things that don't put them in the position that I've been in. And I'm now trying a different tack to my approach with everything I do. So instead of saying, this is what it is, I now say, tell me what you would want it to do. Can it do this? Yeah, it can actually. Let me show you. What's important to you, young student, parent? What do you need it to do for your child?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to do this piece where I show the capabilities of a product rather than it's in that box.
Yeah, and I suppose, I mean, we're in a situation where Darius is dyslexic, I'm not dyslexic, our two children are dyslexic. And so they've aged out of the school system now, they're both adults. But if they were given text to speech, I would just presume, oh, I'm guessing that bit of software will read out your written notes for you. How would I know it to do something more? So what are some of the surprising features of text to speech, of Read Speaker, that actually parents might suddenly have this moment of going like, oh my goodness, it could do that for us?
That's a really good one. Okay, let me give you a couple of cool examples that I think, well, doesn't really fit under the text to speech umbrella. So take me, for example, I use my phone every day, as most people do. One of the cool things about it, I mentioned that when I do my recordings, I like to have some preset questions beforehand. So what I used to do is I would use my phone. It's got optical character recognition on it. I would take a photograph of my printed off notes, which AI has captured from me, and then I would get the text to speech to read it out to me. So you think about how someone with really severe dyslexia, not the unknown things about dyslexia, common traits of a dyslexic. So let's just say mixed mass of words, for example. Imagine going to the train station, not being able to read a timetable on the screen. Imagine just being able to use your phone and take a photograph of it, put your phone to you and listen to the timetable. There's one of the really nice things that it can do that people don't know. Really important. Think about when we were kids doing the dreaded exams. I've talked about the exams. So the way I was always taught to revise was write things down. Of course, we used to write things down, but it was just a garbled mess. Stick it on the wall, stick the important things on the wall, remember them. You don't need to do that with this. It just kind of like makes all these really cool notes for you, and you can colorize them like you would do with a highlight pen. So yellow is super important. I've got to remember this. Darius said I needed to remember that. So that's in yellow. Joe said this might be in the test, so I'll put that in purple. Then you go capture the notes. It captures them all for you. Then what does it do? Read them out to you. So there's another cool thing. So imagine revising for an exam. It's there. What about the exam itself? The worst possible thing for any dyslexic, any ADHD, most neurodivergents panic in a situation like that when they're put under extreme pressure. Yes, you can put your headphones on. Yes, you can listen to it. But it works in a situation where it's one piece of software on one familiar device which you carry around with you. So you're not putting the teacher under any pressure where she's having to install software at the time of the exam, which takes 12 minutes. It might be 2 pieces of software. She's stressing out because she's stressing out. You're stressing out because you're waiting for her to set it all up. You can annotate and work live in that environment, in a test situation or an exam situation. It submits the exam straight back to the examining board or whoever set the test. You can make notes in there, and it just relieves the whole stress from the student and the teacher, which is also super important. And the other thing about it as well is one of the things that I would always say to parents, well, okay, great. You've been given this piece of software. Can it be used in an exam? Yes, it can. We all know what's kind of coming next year. Potentially, we're going to start doing exams online. So ask the question, one piece of advice that I said to any parent that's listening, if your child is potentially given a piece of software, can it be used in an exam? And they'll go, yes, yes, yes. All you need to say, is it JCQ certified? Well, no, not officially. Ours is. So exam situations, you've got nothing to worry about. Text to speech is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's changed the way I work.
Yeah.
And I think
sometimes, so going down the road of text-to-speech itself, that's one of the core things we wanted to bring you on for, was sometimes just because you read, even if you can read, text-to-speech is really useful to have something read out to you. I mean, I know from my own experience that the number of things that I use text-to-speech for is huge. I don't use it all the time because I've got mild dyslexia. It's not huge. It's not moderate. Okay. I said mild in my assessment, and she said, no, Darius, you're moderate. Okay, fair enough, moderate. Everyone that has a tendency to do that, they sort of dial down the sort of seriousness or the challenge of whatever that dyslexic trait is. But what happens is when I'm a bit tired, or when I really need to focus in on something, I don't want to have my eyes skip around or whatever, sometimes I even play the text and read it as well. So I've got it coming in both ways. I'm reading with my eyes and I'm reading with my ears, or sometimes reading something out to you, getting something read out to you, like a question, for example, and you hear the question, you can often understand it better, because often people with dyslexia misread a question or misunderstand a question just through the reading. And in addition to that, they can misunderstand the question in terms of scope. They expand the scope and they think it's a bigger question than it actually is. That's another trait, the big picture thinking. But just that simple act of rereading it. So could you just go through a number of what are the top 10 little things that people use? It doesn't have to be your software, but just speech to text in general. Let's say you're a parent who's never, they've maybe, when I say speech to text, sorry, I get it muddled
text to
up.
speech.
Text to speech. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
So if
brilliant.
you're listening, I mean, I'm always going to be talking about text to speech or text reading. Like, there's loads of people, we often assume they know about it, but we know a little bit about it. You can go into your iPhone, select something and speak it out to me. We've done a little bit of that. And we've talked in previous podcasts that there's so much assistive technology out there that often you think, oh, well, it's in there, it'll be fine. And anyone who's used it is like, yeah, that's great sometimes when I need to dip into it. But there are times where you just need like a whole chapter of book read out to you, or a whole book read out to you, or something else done, like the words identified better and things like that. So could you go through what are the sort of common things that everyday people with dyslexia are using it for that people wouldn't realize, even if it's obvious?
Yeah, so the biggest one, I would say, is dyslexic font, having the font changed. That's absolutely one of the key things that any text-to-speech should do, is the ability to change the font into dyslexic font. Okay. I'm a firm believer in a child or a student or a person, an adult, wherever that might be, should still have the ability to read the words. So you mentioned reading, having it listen to you at the same time, listen to it. That's super important. You should be able to read the words as well. So I would say the second most used feature on any text-to-speech would be the highlighting of the words. So like you see on social media now, when the words bounce, go back to my days, I would use a ruler down the page. So I would mask the page. That's probably an also big feature, which is used a lot by not just dyslexics, also ADHD, concentration, masking the page, focusing on one particular paragraph or one particular sentence. Let's talk about UDL, Universal Design for Life. So let's go to the other side. Let's talk about students that are not from the UK, that have been brought into the UK, Ukrainians, for example, and English isn't their first language. Translation. Can it translate? Can it translate the word, what am I looking at now? Laptop. Can it translate the word laptop into Ukrainian? Because I don't understand the word laptop. What is this word that Darius is speaking to me? You see the light bulb go off when the word is translated from laptop in English to laptop in Ukrainian, and then back to English. So there's another thing that I would suggest that a text-to-speech tool should do. I think another one as well, which for me is super, super important, actually. For me, this would be number one. And maybe for most dyslexics, my pet hate is any audio, any voice which sounds like my school days, like I'm listening to a teacher or a newsreader. I need something to engage me. I need a voice that sounds relaxing and soothing, and makes me want to listen to the content, not robotic, dump. So voice quality is a biggie. I
That
think
also affects voice quality. I've found I read slowly, but I think fast. So what text readers give me is the ability to listen at 2 or 3 times the speed. I often like 3.25 is my speed, and depending on the person, 3.75 if I can get up there. If I could, I would listen at 4, but some of the speakers can't speak clearly at that kind of level. But a lot of AI is getting to the point where it can speak more clearly at a faster speed than a person can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that ability to speed up. But tell us a bit about how much do you see people use that function?
It's used loads. Partially sighted people have it times double, like double speed. So the speed reader, the speed that the text is read out is super important in the community. We've had cases where we've actually had people emailing going, can it go any faster?
Really? What's your
genuinely.
max speed?
Well, I think we had one lad who emailed in, was asking it for times. I think he went. I think if I remember right now, he wanted it 10 times the speed.
Oh wow!
And we were like, and he genuinely, that was what he was asking for.
Yeah.
I think we maxed it out as much as we could for him, because it comes to a certain point where the file starts to distort. And one of the things that a 26-year-old company prides itself on is the quality of the voice.
Yeah.
We want the voice to stay natural sounding. When it doesn't, that's when you lose. You people stop listening. We talk about auditory, kinesthetic, visual. Yeah, I think COVID played a part in this journey of, I noticed Joe's got headphones on.
Oh yeah.
I've got headphones on. You started to see the shift of people putting them on to concentrate that little bit more. Now, you wouldn't go to a face-to-face meeting in a school and sit and put a pair of headphones on, but it just seems to have triggered, COVID has really triggered this journey that we're on. So yeah, listening speed is a really, really important one. And yeah, I would say the ability to speed it up, but not lose the quality that's being read out is also really important, in my opinion.
What other things are common go-tos for people with text reading on a day-to-day kind of basis?
I think one of the other things that I use, and I've certainly seen a lot of neurodivergents use it, and particularly in schools, is the functionality, almost like to use it as a dictionary, if you like. So what is the meaning of the word? That also, again, outside of neurodivergence, for people with language barriers, again, you'll see them use it a lot as well, because they want to understand how that word is used within that sentence, because in French, you wouldn't use it like that. And you can see this. We have a gentleman in Ireland, in Dublin, I think it is, and they have a course which is in Malaysia. I think it's Malaysia. And the gentleman has a really, really thick Irish accent, speaks really, really quickly. And he says they struggle to understand me. You can see them during the lessons, because the lessons are done like this, virtually.
Yeah.
And he said that he now teaches within the text-to-speech platform, has the words highlighted and big, and then they have the facility to translate the words. He says, and you can see them, the understanding, because what they weren't understanding is how I was delivering my sentence, because it had no relevance to the way they would actually speak it in Malaysian.
Could you describe how he was doing it? Was he kind of like sharing the screen and then they could see the words? Is that what you were talking about? Is that what you mean?
We have schools that teach within our text-to-speech platform.
So describe how it works.
So let me give you an example. So for example, it would be on a large visual screen in the back of the classroom, geography lesson, for example, and the teacher would point out, this is a map of Cyprus. This is the capital of Cyprus. And the words would come on and it would speak the words out. Cyprus, Nicosia. She says this teacher has told us that she's delivering that to everybody in the classroom, not just people with dyslexia. She says that she's seen a benefit to the whole classroom by doing this.
So it's when it reads it out, does the teacher kind of stop and let the software say Cyprus or Nicosia just after she said it, sort of thing? Or does it, how does that work?
Potentially, I'm guessing what she would do is she would literally click for it to read the word. However, it doesn't have to be like that. As you've talked to her, you use it. You can have it to read the whole thing in one go. It's however you've got it set up. When they're teaching, though, they probably use a pointer or a clicker and click on the word and it reads the word out. So she just literally click and it will read out the word Cyprus. You click again, it will read out the word Nicosia. So again, you've touched on something there, which is also quite important. If you think about London, think about the iconic red bus in London, think about a picture of the red bus in London, you would want your text to speech, in my opinion, to be able to go, this is a picture of London, this is a picture of the red bus. That for me is super important, because how many times do you open a book, or you're doing a chemistry lesson, for example, or biology or whatever it might be, and this is an illustration of this. You want it to read the text within that picture as well. Something else that's super important. So you've got me thinking now as well.
And when we were talking just before we started recording, you mentioned, Jay, about how you make your posts when you're posting on social media. And I really loved that combination of using speech to text and then text to speech, because for so many people, these technologies don't exist in isolation. You sort of partner them up together so that you get the end result that you want. And I just think that must translate to so many forms of communication, whether it's email or letter or text. So can you talk through, I know that's probably going to really confuse Darius's mind, talking about speech to text and then text to speech, but actually it's that process of there's something in your head that you want to get into a written format, but you also need to sense check that format. And so how can you partner the technologies to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I use it every day. Maybe not on Sundays. Sunday's a rest day, but pretty much every day. So as I've explained to you, I have beautiful pictures up here. I have words down here, and I might want to compose something. I might want to write a post on social media. I might want to write an email. For me, I have been often accused and guilty of writing emails which appear frustrated, angry, disjointed, aggressive, unhappy, because I haven't got it right when I've typed it out, and I just click send. So what I do now is I dictate, and for anyone that's listening, there's lots of tools out there that you can use to dictate. You can dictate it, I dictate it, I save it, and then I've got my lovely statement out. I could be saying, hi, today I'm going on a podcast with Darius and Joe. This is where you'll find me. Now, I'll listen to it. And the reason I listen to it is I want to hear in my own mind if what was up there and what's come out there matches what it should feel like. Does it feel nice? Does it feel correct? And then when it's done that and I've got it read out, I also then use some AI to help me write it nice, and then I post it. So there's a combination of tools. I think what's important for everybody out there is don't fall into the trap of thinking, well, I've been given this tool, that's my limitations. Not at all. Just ask the questions. Reach out to people like you guys. Reach out to the community. How do you do this? What's your thoughts on this? There's some wonderful tools. I've been lucky enough, and I'm sure you have as well, to see some stuff that's coming out, and there's some fantastic products coming out all the time to help us, to make our lives easier. But yeah, that for me works really well. Speech to text, so I talk what I'm thinking, then I listen to it. If I'm happy with how it listens, I make sure it's written and there's no spelling mistakes, and then I post it or I email it or I do whatever I need to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I love text to speech, and Joe laughs at me because I say, oh, I read a book. And she says, no, you didn't read a book. You listened to it. And I'm like, yes, I did. I read it with my ears, dear.
Do you, question for you then, when you are having those books read to you, are you just listening to it? Are you looking at the words as well? Or are you just listening to it?
I just listen to them often. Often I just listen. I just want to just be absorbed and listen to the flow, catch the main ideas. But there's a weakness to that, because yes, I'm listening to it maybe 3 times speed. I'm catching the core ideas. I'm not always catching all of the details. But if I want to really do some close reading, as it were, I do close listening, and I switch on the reader. I put it on maybe at 1.2 speed, 1.25, so it's slower. I read it myself. It keeps me focused, and I've got that reading with my eyes and my ears. So I do a bit of both, but I mostly just listen to it.
It's interesting. I find my only listening would be music, and I can pick out every word of every lyric of every song. Like, I don't know why, I just can. And I remember it. If I listened to a book without the words, I wouldn't remember it. Now,
Right.
I have to have the words bigger, and I have to, same as you, I have the speed increase slightly, but the words have to be bigger for me. It could just be, like I talked about before, that's a fear of failure and a fear of getting it wrong and me not remembering it. And maybe that's my guilty way of going, well, if I'm reading the words, then I am remembering it. Never actually tried to do it the way you do it. So maybe in my next book, I might do it the way you do it and just see if I do remember it. Interesting.
Well, one of the things that I found following my dyslexia assessment, that I remember it quite clearly. She said, Darius, you have to read with your finger. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not a kid. And she's like, your finger, do it. And I start to do it. And she says, your finger is holding the place. So if your eye does jump somewhere else, or if you think about something else, you don't need to find your place again. Your finger's holding your place. And then as
Interesting.
you're flowing your finger along, you can determine what speed you're going to read at and so on. It's amazing. And then she explained that it's about working memory as well. It allows you to really lock in on that thing that you're focusing in on and lock it into that key word. And then she said the next thing about working memory is underline key words, not whole sentences, not paragraph, just keywords. Okay. And so when I started to do that, I would read through a whole book and I would underline keywords. Sometimes really closely, I would underline the main keyword in a sentence, or if I wasn't reading it too intently, I might underline 2 words in a whole paragraph that had a key quote. And if it was really good, I'd do a double line on the side and do a wee asterisk to help me remember that's really important. And then that really helped me, because what it's doing is it's dumping your working memory. You're not having to think, hold on to that idea. Your mind can say, oh, it's okay, it's there, and you'll be able to find it. Don't worry about it. You can let go of that and take the next thought. And sometimes this effect of walking around and not remembering anything is also working memory overload, because you've got your brain is trying to hold on to all these key ideas. You don't know where you're putting it and so on. And so it just gets deleted. Although you've understand the general concepts, you've got none of the core details. And so what happens, I've noticed, is as I'm reading, I get to a paragraph and I see a whole paragraph that's not been underlined at the end of it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a paragraph with no underlining on it. Oh, that author must have said nothing there, nothing important there, just padding. And I would keep writing. And then I'm old enough to now know, no, Darius, that's not the author, that's you. And you're like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And you go back and you reread it. And that's when my mind went blank, or my working memory got overloaded because I was thinking about something else. I'd reread it and I'd force myself, what is the keyword? It's got to be some useful keyword in you. Oh, that. And then that's my indicator that instead of going 5 pages later or 10 pages later in that blank state, I catch when I blank out in terms of overwhelm at that moment. And I think sometimes when you're listening, you don't have that ability to just lock down some key ideas, and it can sometimes overwhelm your working memory. So sometimes I find if I'm listening to something really useful, I would love to listen to it more, but I have to just stop because my brain's full of the ideas and it has to sort of digest them. Otherwise, I'll get indigestion of the mind.
And that's kind of how I use text to speech in my day-to-day job. Like you said the finger pointing. I have the page masked, so I can't see anything down here. That's just blanked out. It focuses on that paragraph. I have the word read out, the finger pointing, and I listen to it. So I'm actually doing 3 of the things there that you talked about. The only thing that I'm not doing is underlining the words. But again, there's another, if I was a parent, there's another feature that I would be looking for, the ability to highlight a word or the ability to underline a word, for whether it be for your memory bank or for a test or whatever. But it's a really valid point.
It depends where you fall on the drawing and writing in books, obviously, as to whether you underline in books.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that is some people's pet hate, right? I know that. Yeah.
I have to read a book and then pass it on to Darius. I think I just don't want someone else telling me what the important words are.
It's a crime. Yeah. I think some people regard it as a crime against the book to mark it, and I am behind me is, I don't know, 200 books of criminal evidence that I've underlined books and defaced them, bent over the corners, double bent over corners, highlighted in the margins, scribbled, written notes on the back page. And you open something like that, my book up, it's just kind of a...
Thanks for ruining the book for me. Yeah. You've just ruined that whole book. I can't even read it now.
Yeah, that book isn't for anyone else. It's now basically my own personal notes taken on the book, and is now
I feel your pain, honestly.
Do you do the same?
Yeah, I do. I highlight words and underline. I've got books with notes in, terrible. One of the things I've really gotten into recently as well, someone suggested that I should keep like a journal. What do I want to keep a journal for? They just write your thoughts down. Yeah, but my writing's atrocious. It doesn't matter. Write it down. So I've started keeping a journal. It's quite funny. My wife will look at my journal. So why have you put lines into that word? So I can remember it. Yeah, but you've made a right mess of it now. Yeah, but I needed to remember that word. I do the same. I literally just like, and it's not just one line with me. It's like 3 lines. That's really important.
Yeah. And I sometimes do like the 2-3 lines under the word, and then I'm like, that's not enough. I've got to put a line on the side to remind me when I'm going down the side that word's really important. And then if it's super important, it's a line down the side with a star, and it's really, really important. It's a line with 2 stars and a folded over corner at the top. And so I've got this kind of ranking system where I can flick through a book, and if there's like 15 pages with the corners turned over, I open it up and I can go down, see the double star, read that sentence, and I can remind myself of that whole book just with those keys. And then I also...
It's so funny. It's brilliant. I love it. It's so funny because it's exactly the same. Yeah. And it's our way. It's our coping mechanism, right? It's the way we cope. It's the way we deal with what we need to do. And as I said, touch wood, my children are smart and they're efficient, and they're coping and they're doing well. And I would hate to have to be a parent to go through what my mum and dad went through, believing that I was this naughty child, and all this, what we've talked about, all these things, these wonderful things that are available, just tap into them and use them, because it just makes reading a book enjoyable again. I hated reading books. Look at all those books behind you. I would have literally gone, that's my worst nightmare. Not anymore. You know, it makes it enjoyable again. It gives us back, it gives people back the ability to enjoy what we've missed out on for years.
And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's about giving you back the power to choose what you enjoy, as opposed to feeling like there's a whole section of life that you're excluded from. You may access all of these tools and you may still be a bit like, I still don't love reading, but at least you've been able to make that choice for yourself, as opposed to someone making that choice for you.
It is. It is. You're right. And I think if I could go back and be given the opportunity to do my schooling again, with the ability to tap into the stuff that I potentially was really interested in, but was too scared to follow because I just thought I couldn't do it. It was too complex. It was too complicated. I didn't enjoy it because I didn't understand it. I think it's great what technology is now allowing these children to do. And long may it continue. And I hope that I'm sure technology will get better, AI, and we'll get to understand the capabilities of the brain more. Everything, Darius, I was laughing because I do exactly the same, and it's so funny. We do these things to get by, but technology gives us the ability to enjoy what we've missed out on. It really does.
I'm going to go through a few things that I found useful, just as a quick bullet point, add to some of the stuff you've got so that we've covered it's useful for proofreading. So when you re-listen to it, you hear the tangled sentences. You can also catch missing words, because sometimes when we do spell check, we think we might have checked it. You click a red square and you check the word, even it's the right spelling, but of the wrong word.
Yeah.
So you've corrected
Correct.
the spelling, and then you re-listen to it and you go, oh, that's the wrong word. But it's the wrong
Yeah.
word spelt rightly, so you don't see the
Yeah.
red lines. But when you re-listen to it, you can hear that. The other thing is tricky instructions, which we've covered already. And often it's quite useful when they're really long instructions. You know, sometimes when you've got a big, long paragraph of this is what's all involved, and these are the themes, and these are the things to remember. It's just useful to just hear it all through, so you've got the kind of bigger picture. And then when you read through it more carefully, you can break it down because you've got the big picture. Sometimes with dyslexia, you kind of need the big picture. You need to understand why, or the edges of the jigsaw puzzle, before you fit in the pieces.
Absolutely. Think about a complex degree, a law degree. Think about how text heavy that is. The ability to listen to the content.
Yeah.
You know,
There was
simplifying it.
one dyslexic law student I read about. He could read, but he could not understand the books when he read. He could not understand the law books when he listened to it at 2 times speed. But when he got up to 6 times speed, he could understand it.
Resonated. Yeah.
I mean,
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's just crazy. My friends, I told them that last year. They thought I was lying about me
No.
listening to podcasts at 3.5 speed. They're like,
No,
how?
it's common. It's really common, genuinely. Yeah.
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 Then there's fatigue. And I think sometimes when you get with dyslexia, you often get really fatigued halfway through something. And maybe you're reading it with your eyes, and then you go, gosh, I'm getting tired. Often you can switch on the screen reader and you just close your eyes, listen to it, and give your eyes a break. And you can finish a task rather than it becoming another thing. Oh, I'll come back to this. And then you never do. And it becomes a real burden.
That's the memory blank bit as well for some people. So we have people that when they do that, that is the bit when they actually physically switch off. You mentioned that paragraph that you'd missed from your highlighting, your underlining, that's switching off. So it's like a memory burnout. It's my brain needs to just recalibrate for a few minutes and then it switches back on. But by that time, you've read this much more of the book and none of that has gone in. So you're dead right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something that's interesting is like when you're doing an essay and you've got like an outline and you've created an outline for an essay, sometimes it's really useful to just have a screen reader read those bullet points out for you. So you're not concentrating on the reading, you're not concentrating on the keywords, you're just concentrating on the ideas. And sometimes it's just whatever can help you concentrate on the ideas and not get caught up in the detail, distracting you from keeping that big picture. Because often we start from the big picture down to the details. Other people start from the details and build up the big picture, but gives you that big picture.
It sounds very much a bit like a translation device. I mean, Jay, I don't know if you're aware, our software, ivvi, can take text and create a real-time mind map from it, or take audio and create a mind map. And we often talk about it as being a sort of translation device in that it takes audio or it takes written and it translates it into a visual language that if someone with dyslexia or a very visual thinker will understand. And text to speech is sounding very similar. You're taking the text, which is not your natural language, and you're creating speech, which actually you can then internalize visually. You know, someone's speaking out and you can create the images and the pictures. So just when you were saying about the bullet points there for an essay, Darius, I could imagine you're almost creating pegs in your mind that you can then hang concepts over and you can build your story out. And again, that might tie with then your speech to text. So then you speak it out and you've got the text.
You're almost like within this journey that you're going on. So talk about Darius's Word document. It's like a sanity check as well.
Yeah.
You're able to hear your
Yeah.
own thoughts spoken by somebody else, whether it be a male, female, Scottish, Irish, English, Welsh, whatever language you want. But you then get to hear it read back to you. And I think it's dead right. Both Darius and I, we've got lovely, lovely images up here, but when we put it down on paper, we probably think that's great. What I now find is actually that's not so great. I have one of our voices called Jude, which I think is brilliant, and Alfie is really nice and relaxed. When he reads it back to me, I'm like, God, that sounds terrible. So I automatically go back onto the Word document and get him to read it again. That sounds better. And you'd be able to see my facial expression. I just know that sounds better.
Yeah.
Explain to me, is it the same person reading it twice, or do you edit it in between? I didn't quite catch that, the difference.
Yeah, those are two voices, my two go-to voices that I choose.
Okay.
So if I've got something really, really heavy to read, like a document, loads and loads of text, then my go-to voice is always Alfie, because he's relaxed, he's calm, it's a nice tone voice. And he seems to work with me because I can listen to it and I remember it. When I'm getting someone to read something back that I've typed, I go to a voice called Jude. He's more of a newsreader style voice, still relaxed, but he'll read it the way that I would for a professional email, for example. Then I can visualize how someone would hear that email when they're reading it. A non-neurodivergent would read it. I'm thinking, well, that's how they're visualizing it, what I've typed, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah, that's really clever.
Now, another thing that's quite interesting with dyslexia, often we mispronounce words without realizing it. Like specifically, our daughter used to have a challenge
that word.
specifically, or I don't know. There's all sorts of interesting words which we muddle up the order of the sounds in our mind, and no matter how much we do it, it's like spelling. We get the spelling wrong, but we also get the telling wrong as well. And so sometimes if you get something to read it out to you, hearing it is a bit like spell check for words, but it's like word check for speaking. It helps you hear how it's meant to be said, because sometimes in a family, someone says, how did Rosie say specifically? She had a particular way.
Specifically.
What did she say?
Specifically.
Oh, Pacifically.
That's how I used to say it, specifically.
Pacifically. And because she didn't hear the sp, she held the p, and it turned into Pacifically. And we would correct her until the point where we realized it's like spelling. We're not going to correct it. We're not going to call her out on it or anything that embarrass her anymore on it, or laugh at her anymore. God, I'm so sorry, Rosie, for having laughed at you about that. Because I know sometimes you do it as banter in a family, but sometimes it can go a bit too far. Do you know what I mean? And it can really hurt. But having a tool like that, read it out to you and say it again, because sometimes when another person says it, they go, no, Darius, it's specifically. And you're like, okay, yeah, specific. Can you say it again? Specifically. And you're not always got that time in a conversation to do that. But with a tool like this, you can re-listen to it, re-listen to it, re-listen to it.
No, it's a memory repeat, isn't it? It's like when you meet somebody, I don't know whether you do it, like first time I meet someone, I repeat their name back to them. So it's the repetitive nature of someone saying a word over and over so you understand the correct way that it's pronounced. And you think about how complex it is to do this. I certainly couldn't do what our engineers do. The Welsh language, for example, the words in the Welsh language, how they build this dictionary up so that when dyslexics or any neurodivergents listen to these words, they sound the way they want them. Like you said that word, I'm not going to try and say it because it'll come out wrong, but so that when they do hear the word, it's said correctly. It's a really complex piece of the back end of what this technology is made up is really, same as your talk, really intense, but yeah, it just helps with memory jog.
Well, it's really brilliant to know that these sort of software solutions are out there. I think it's such an encouragement. It's like you were saying, Jay, it's really that sense of a parent doesn't have to navigate this alone. Someone who's perhaps listening, who's reached adulthood and they're sort of responsible for their own journey now. There is way more out there than actually you probably realize. And we'll leave the details for Readable in the show notes. We'll leave your podcast in the show notes as well. And I think it's really just to encourage people that there will be a solution. And And just by the very nature that that solution exists, it means you're not the only person struggling with that. So don't feel that you're on your own. Don't feel like you're the one person who's going to break the system. You're not too much. It's that funny tension, isn't it? A feeling like you're not enough because you don't do it the same way that everyone else does it. But then that makes you too much to try and fix. But actually,
I agree.
There's solutions out there. And so it's really to encourage people. And so grateful, Jay, that you have found your voice and you're out there advocating and talking and just sharing your journey. And yeah, I think it does make such a difference to people. So it's been brilliant to talk today and
thank you.
Learn more about text to speech.
Yeah, I get it right. That's right. Yeah. No, listen, thank you very much. And I think what you do, both of you do is wonderful. And I agree with everything you said. Don't struggle. Don't sit in silence. Ask again. You're not broken. Don't believe you're broken, because you're not. There's tools, and reach out, get the help. And the tools aren't expensive either. They're really not. They're affordable, and they really, really help. And they can change you. They changed me. They've made me a better person. I can breathe now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, another 5 minutes, if you don't mind, have you got 5 minutes? Because,
of course.
Yeah, I think one of the purposes of this pod in particular was to really convince people who are listening to take text readers really seriously. You know, like I've got mild to moderate dyslexia, so I can kind of get by with reading okay. When you think to yourself, I don't really need it. It's like, it's just another thing. Do you know what I mean? But what we really want to do is encourage you to just, we're not being paid for this or sponsored or anything like that for anyone. We're just, these three key things, text to speech, speech to text, and mind mapping, are continually repeated in dyslexia assessments as recommendations, and the British Dyslexia Association, if you look through the top recommendations they think as a minimum requirement in the workplace or in life, those three are always there. And there's a reason why, because so many people's lives with dyslexia have been transformed. We have a tendency with dyslexia to say, I'll just manage, I'll just push through, I'll just try harder. And that's what kind of like our past has taught us to do. But in a way, it's like, it's okay. You can delegate that job to a tool so that it allows you to use more of your energy for your unique abilities and your higher level thinking. And in a way, that's what I wanted to say, just so that this is not a promotion of your software in particular. It's just this whole category. No. Take it seriously. It's great on the phone. Love it. All the built-in assistive technology. But there is often that step where you think, do I really need it? And I would highly recommend scanning in a book with a PDF, getting a tool like this to read it out to you and experience what the difference is. There's so much. So tell us a little bit within that context of your company, please, because I don't know that much about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
what is your company? It's not an advert. It's just help me understand and us to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company I work for is called Read Speaker. They've been going for 26 years, 27 next. We are owned by Mitsubishi Group, so a huge corporation, Japan. So our bread and butter is voice technology, which is why I said to you, that's something that's really important to me, the quality of the voice. Okay. The products sit within the education sector that I look after. So they may be used in universities on large learning management suites or virtual learning environments, whatever you want to call them. So what the lecturers teach on. So our technology is available in that. It's available as an individual product, like I talked about, which is a product called Text Aid. So Text Aid. That's the one that is available on the Disability Students Allowance. So if your child is assessed and is opportunity to get that tool through there, that's the tool I use every day and I carry it around me. It's a portable product. So I could go on to, this is one of the big things for me. And again, I'm outside my working hours now. I'm the same as you guys. I just want to help people.
Yeah.
One of the really cool things about this, I think, which I should have mentioned, is this product can be used on any device, anywhere, no matter, even if it's a really, really old computer. So if you think about a family who are struggling and they've got one of the big old PCs, they can still jump on and use this product. It doesn't have to be a fancy laptop. There's nothing installed. It's totally portable. And that for me is one of the big things about this. You can take it anywhere. You can go from school on a school computer, go home and pick up where you left off. And for me, as a dyslexic, that's really important because we talked about like the gaps, the mind when you switch off. Being able to just pick up exactly where you were and carry on your computer at home, I think is super important. So yeah, Read Speaker, like we're owned by, like I say, a large Japanese company. That the original creator of the product was a gentleman in Sweden who was actually partially sighted and was making a screen reader. And he got into text to speech. So neurodivergence has always been with us through our whole journey. And something you just said I really want to pick on, Darius, is if I had to say to somebody right now, my statement would be, stop being so resilient, because we're resilient buggers. We really are neurodivergence. Stop it. Just stop. Stop the resilience. Sit back. Let the technology do the difficult bits for you when you can focus on something far more important. It makes your life so much easier. It really does. That would be the point.
Yeah, and we'll say that to people a lot, that actually you can spend an awful lot of your energy working on things that you don't feel very good at and probably become quite average at them. Or you can use all of the accommodations and the support and the technology that's out there to help with those things, and then use the energy for the things that you're really gifted and passionate about and actually be brilliant.
Yeah, don't suffer. There's too many people suffering, and there's one gentleman that listens every week to my podcast. He comments anonymously, and this is a sad story. Don't be like this. He's stuck in a job that he's been in for 7 years. He's too scared to tell his manager that he's dyslexic and ADHD. He went for assessment and he struggles. He hates Sundays because he has to go to work on a Monday. And he says he's too old to get another job. You don't need to put yourself under those kind of pressures anymore in life. There's great products, like you say. There's a lovely community. Like there's nothing I'm trying to give back. I don't want people to go through what I've been through.
Yeah.
And I will help anybody. Anybody can reach out to me and I'll point you in the right direction. No problem.
Brilliant. And I think it's like we spend a lot of time strengthening our weaknesses, like Joe was saying.
Yeah.
And if we take that energy and strengthen our strengths, we will really come into our unique contributions.
Right.
But that doesn't just happen by itself. We talk about superpowers, but things don't. Technically speaking, certain human beings look like they've got superpowers, but what they've done is they've taken a small improvement and improved it again and improved it again, or maybe some small skill or some small advantage, and then improved on it, and then it looks like a superpower. So that takes a potential that you've got and then turns it into a real ability or real contribution. But that takes effort. It doesn't just happen. Just because you're a natural person at visualizing things doesn't mean you're going to be really good at using that skill. Because it takes practice. Even if you're a natural at football, you're going to have to practice at football. Even if you're a natural at golf, you're going to have to practice at it. It'll give you a little head start. And so what really pains me is when people spend so much time and energy making sure the same as everyone else, whether it comes to writing notes. In my world, it's all about written notes being turned into visual notes. You can spend so much time writing the notes and then being no use to you. And then you've not got that extra ability to show how well you understand how all the concepts connect with each other and to other contexts that other people don't realize, because you're stuck in those weeds. And it's the same with reading. It's like you said, let go of being resilient and also let go at being good at everything.
Yeah, you don't need to be. You don't need to be. Someone said to me the other week, and I'm not going to take any credit for it because I think it was one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. Being a neurodivergent is like Superman. And I thought, oh, here we go. The superpower statement, which I frankly, I'm a bit bored of it. I thought, okay. So at that point, I started to switch off. And then he immediately said, But Superman's got kryptonite as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, where are you going with this? He said, imagine walking around with kryptonite in your back pocket. It's managing the kryptonite. Forget about being Superman. You need to manage what you're not so good at.
Absolutely.
And that is what technology does for you. It manages the kryptonite and allows you to hone into those skills. There are some, like you said, there's some brilliant people, brilliant people, and they've improved by 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1% until they made themselves that much better. But what they have done is that's taking care of itself because they've managed the kryptonite in their back pocket. And I just thought that was one of the most powerful things I'd heard.
Love it.
Well, that's definitely a good thought to end on and leave people thinking about. How do they manage their kryptonite?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, that
very,
was
very
fantastic.
welcome.
So great to hear your story. So great to hear about the technology that's out there. And yeah, I hope people listen and leave with hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you in the BET Awards in January.
Yeah, we'll see you at BET in January.
We've been nominated, our company's been nominated for a finalist. Did you see that? We were kind of surprised.
Amazing.
Yeah,
we were nominated last year and we came second, but just even to be nominated is brilliant. It's a great event. You'll love it. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Till next time. See ya.
Bye.